Bashar has defined 7 basic needs that we need in life that will actually fulfill us. And these are based on the idea of what it takes to thrive in physical reality. In other words, without these, you would actually die either quickly or slowly, or you would feel depressed and start to go downhill. So number one, of course, is air. You need to breathe. You'll be dead within minutes without it. Now, I understand there are exceptions to this throughout the legends of humanity where people don't eat for a long time or don't drink water for a long time and they're doing fine. But these are the exceptions. What I'm talking about is the average for everyone. So you need air, you need water, you need to sleep, you need to reconnect to spirit, you need to dream more specifically. They've done studies that show that if you sleep but are deprived of dreaming, you actually can go psychotic in about 11 to 12 days. And therefore, you can go spiraling downward from that. Of course, then physically, you need food to thrive because you'll die without food in a matter of weeks. And then it shifts into a little bit more broad idea of what you need in terms of shelter. Shelter doesn't necessarily mean you need a house. It means you need an environment that is conducive to physically thriving. So sometimes there are areas on the planet, like certain tropical environments, where people can live outside very comfortably without necessarily needing a physical shelter, a physical house. So the idea is the environment needs to be conducive to thriving physically as well. The next thing, the sixth thing, is you need connection or relationship to something. Again, doesn't have to be a human being, can be with an animal, can be with a tree, can be with the cosmos. As long as you feel a sense of connection, belonging, relationship, then you will thrive in physical reality. The final thing is what we might call self-expression or acting on your passion. And this is what dovetails into the formula that Bashar talks about all the time, is you have to be yourself and express yourself and not be suppressed in doing so. You have to really be you and not be something that you're not. The most difficult thing in the reality is to try and be someone you're not. So being yourself, expressing yourself creatively, lovingly, artistically, whatever that means to you, is something that's vital for us to thrive in physical reality. And therefore, these 7 things will be the things that will fulfill your life. Sometimes your wants may coincide with your needs, but very often the ego gets lost and confused in about what it is that it wants, and what you want may not actually be what you need at that moment. There are a lot of people that have certain things they've said they wanted, but they're still not happy in their life. So what you need will fulfill you. What you want may sometimes, but not always. So if you're going to want, I would suggest you want what you need, because that will fulfill you.
I'd like to ask you a question right away about the parallel realities. I know there is many, many parallel lives and parallel realities going on at the same time. But people do not understand that. To be honest, I don't understand it either. I have a little bit of idea, but
Well, I think one of the best analogies that Bashar often uses is our television. So if you are watching a program, you know that there are hundreds of other television programs playing at the same time, but they're separated from the one you're watching by a slight difference in their frequency or the channel that they're on, in other words. So if you change the channel, you get a different program, but they're all still playing the same time, and the one you were just watching could still be playing even after you changed the channel. So he's basically saying that reality is structured like that. All the realities are like programs all playing simultaneously, and they're only separated by a difference in their frequency. So it's all about resonance, it's all about vibration, it's all about frequency that keeps all those different realities, all those different timelines from interacting with each other. However, because our consciousness is now expanding, because we are starting to understand the concept of parallel realities, sometimes our bandwidth can now get bigger and people can start picking up on more than one reality at the same time. And this causes things like sometimes like what we call deja vu. It sometimes causes what we call the Mandela effect. and other kinds of psychic phenomena where we're tapping into parallel realities that may be operating a little bit ahead of ours or a little bit behind ours, not in sync, and picking up on information and bringing it through. So I think there's actually a lot of bleed through now from different parallel realities because our own consciousness bandwidth has gotten a little bit broader. So to be like suddenly on your television seeing 2 or 3 shows overlapping at the same time on your TV screen.
Yeah, so this is true that right now we are kind of moving. It's a big shift in consciousness around the world, but I would say around our collective consciousness, because
Mhm.
everybody speaks about that right now. Like we're moving into not even 4D, but into 5D. That's what they say.
Well, 5 density is non-physical. So the idea is that we are third density beings tapping into fifth density energy, which is our soul, and creating a fourth density physical reality in the middle. So that's how we're raising our vibration to become more evolved.
Okay, that's interesting. So we can create our own realities if we tune to a correct frequency.
Well, we're creating our realities anyway. So yes, you can create the reality you prefer by tuning into a different frequency that's more in alignment with who you really are as a spirit, as a soul. So it's about what you're tuning into. We're already creating our reality experience. We can't help but do that. That's how we're made.
Yeah, so this is all about positive thinking or negative thinking, affirmations to yourself that you are doing well and gratitude, or affirmations to yourself that you feel terrible. So you're basically tuning into different realities every time you think thoughts.
Yes, but it's also deeper than that because it's not just about what you think, it's about what you believe to be true.
Yeah.
So beliefs generate emotions and thoughts and behaviors, and then that creates an experience that reinforces that belief and makes it seem like a fact. But it starts with your belief system or, whatever definition about yourself compared to what you're experiencing that you buy into as being the most true definition for you. So positive, negative, neutral, yeah.
So when this big shift in consciousness started on our planet or on our collective consciousness, because it's been crazy for the last several years, let's say even starting from
Sure.
2020, COVID, the war over there and all that. So you can see that everything is happening. I think it started much earlier.
Well, yeah, I mean, there are markers, there are different moments where things accelerate, things upgrade, things shift a little bit. I mean, it's a constant progression, but we know that we've had some major shifts in 2012. We know that we've had some major shifts in 2020, like you said. But I think what we're experiencing right now, according to what Bashar said and a lot of other psychics have said, is we're going through a 30-year reset for humanity. So from 2020 to 2050, it's like we're entering a completely new phase where at the end of that shift, we're going to be doing things that are very different than the way we're doing them now. So we're in the middle of it, and there are markers along the way, but it is a progression, and it's been going on, yes, for quite some time.
So we'll be creating more with our minds versus with our hands. Even right now with the internet, even social media right now we're creating everything with our minds. Even talking
Yeah,
right now to each other. Yeah.
sure. Yes. And of course, that'll keep going, but we're not going to give up the idea of physical reality. It still requires physical actions that create things like the internet. You still have to build things, create things physically. In order to represent the shifts in our consciousness, you have to do both because action is the language of physical reality. Thoughts and energy, and language on that level, that's good for our creative side, but we have to do something with that if we're going to remain a physical being for a while. So you have to do both.
Okay. Can you explain the sentence end of simulation?
The simulation is our simulation. It's not coming from outside. We're creating it. We create physical reality as a simulation, as a reflection. So we're going through an evolution, we're going through changes and shifts. It's not ending as a simulation. We
Yeah.
are still going to be experiencing physical reality, just on a higher level. So we're ending a lower vibration of the simulation and shifting it to a higher vibration of the simulation so that it's more in alignment with the frequency of our soul. So we will start seeing through the simulation. We are starting to understand it is a simulation, but it's our simulation. And that's, I think, what he might mean by the end of the simulation. It's the end of the illusion that it's something happening outside of us and the understanding that we're the ones creating it. Therefore, we can manipulate the simulation more consciously because now we are aware that it's our projection, it's our creation.
Now, I heard that if we have a traumatic experience, let's say in childhood or in the past, we can fix the past. We can change the past with our thoughts. Can you elaborate on that, please?
Well, again, if you change yourself in the present, you automatically change the past. Now, if you feel like there is still something going on from the past, you have to remember you're recreating that in the present every moment. So, in other words, I'll put it this way. We are experiencing physical reality. It's a linear space-time idea that contains the concepts of past, present, and future. So when we change ourselves enough in the present and we become a different person in the present, in order for it to make sense in linear physical reality, in space-time reality, you have to have had a different past in order to have become the different person you are in the present. So anytime you change yourself, you change everything all the way up and down the timeline because it has to make sense linearly for what has happened to make you who you are today. But if you are still looking at things that you say come from the past, all you're doing is saying, I haven't learned a lesson in this yet. I'm recreating it over and over until I learn I don't need this anymore. And then it will dissolve. It will disappear. You will no longer be affected by it. And the truth is, when you change yourself and become different enough, it's not that you're no longer affected by it. You never were affected by it because you've completely changed the past to make sense out of the present person who doesn't have those issues at all and never has had those issues. This kind of thing can be demonstrated and often is demonstrated sometimes in those examples we hear about where people have what used to be called multiple personality disorder. Now I think it's called dissociative identity disorder. But the same idea is that it has been recorded that people who have one personality expressing itself, that personality may actually have a physical condition like a tumor or an allergy or something like that. But when the personality shifts into a different person, that literal physical issue is gone. They don't have the allergy, they don't have the tumor, but when they shift back to the original personality, they have it again. So I think this is a perfect demonstration of the idea that we're talking about, that when you truly become a different person in your belief system structure, everything changes, including the past, because how could a tumor just disappear? It doesn't so much disappear, it's that the new person has never had the tumor. The new person has never had the allergy. And it can change in an instant when you understand how to make that shift be something totally engaged with your consciousness. You can't just do it halfway. You have to really know you are a different person. You have to know that every change is a total change, not a partial change. You are a different person, literally, moment to moment to moment, billions of times per second, as you're constantly creating your physical reality experience. So whatever it is the definition you have of yourself is what you will experience. And it doesn't matter if you think you still look like the same person, you're not the same person moment to moment. So it's up to us to choose who we are every single moment.
Okay, I'm going to bring a little simple example here. Let's say you look at the pictures of the past, black and white photos when you were a child and you had a terrible childhood, and you see those pictures and you're reliving again those bad memories. Are you coming back to the same person you used to be? Is it dangerous to do that?
No, but remember, when you look at a photograph, the photograph is being recreated by you in the present. It's not actually a photo of the past. It may represent the idea you're calling the past, but the physical photo you're holding and looking at, you are recreating it in the present because you're creating a simulation. And for some reason, you're saying, I need to keep seeing this. I need to keep relating to this. This has to stay in my present again and again and again. Because usually there is something you can do to use that information to move forward, to become different, to move
Yeah.
on. But if you're not learning the lesson, if you keep thinking for some reason in your belief system, you have to keep recreating it, reconnecting to that, then yeah, you keep recreating it, but you're creating it in the present. It's not actually from the past, it's actually from the present. And you just haven't learned why it is you keep recreating this yet. You have to get in touch with yourself deeply to understand what lesson can you learn from this so that you can let it go, so that you can, forgive and move on and free yourself to be who you actually prefer to be, instead of having a belief that says, I'm stuck here, I'm always going to be in trauma, I'm always going to be a victim. You're always constantly recreating that for a reason. And the reason is you have a belief that it's necessary to hold on to that because you haven't learned some lesson that helps you move forward. So when you finally realize you can use those experiences, as negative as they may have been, in a positive way to move forward, then you can begin to stop recreating that connection in the present and you can move on.
Now, Darryl, you mentioned deja vu. Can you give us a little bit of explanation of deja vu for people who don't know? Everybody heard the term, but not everybody understands it.
Yeah, deja vu is typically described as the experience of suddenly knowing what is about to happen because it feels like it's already happened before, like you've already seen this and that you're seeing it again. There can be different mechanical reasons for that, but one of them involves the possibility of tapping into a parallel reality. So let's say, again, let's go back to the analogy of the television. Let's say you're watching a particular program and then you change channels and the other channel is also playing that program, but maybe it's playing it out of sync. So maybe the program on channel 2 is farther ahead than the program on the first channel. So if there are different parallel realities, they're not always in sync. One reality may be very similar to ours, but it might already be, let's say, a year ahead in the future. So you might pick up on that parallel reality and some incident that is happening in that reality in what to you is a year ahead in the future. But now you're in your own timeline. You've picked that up unconsciously. You're not aware that you've done that, but then your reality catches up and it's a year later and suddenly you go, wait a minute, this feels so familiar. It's like I've seen this before. I've experienced this before. Why is that? Because you've caught up to the parallel reality that you unconsciously perceived a year before. So that can be one reason for deja vu. Another reason can be spirits basically plan their physical lives before they incarnate. There are certain things you lay out. I mean, you have free will, there's some give and take, there's some leeway, but certain events are laid out because they're important for your soul's growth. It's the agreement you made to experience certain challenges so that you can expand and grow. So when the spirit lays out, let's say, the blueprint for that physical life, and then it incarnates, and then there are times when there might be bleed through before you actually experience the manifestation physically. So when you then finally experience the manifestation physically in your unconscious mind, you realize that you've picked up on the fact that this was created in the spiritual blueprint of your life. And now it feels like, well, wait a minute, I've experienced this before, but it's that you experienced it on the spirit level, and now you're experiencing it on the physical level. So yes, I've seen this before on another level, and now it's happening in physical reality. That can be another reason for deja vu.
Yeah, you said that we plan our lives before we come back here. Now, most people can't believe that they planned their own life the way it is because they're miserable. A lot of people are miserable. They say, I could not do that. So why they plan this particular life?
It's not that they planned to be miserable. It's that they planned the challenge. How they face the challenge is up to their free will as a physical person. So if they have been taught to have negative definitions and they're defining something in a negative way, then yes, they could experience that challenge as being miserable. But if they say, wait a minute, I don't have to look at it this way, this challenge can be experienced with curiosity and creativity and wonder, and I can explore it in a positive way, and I know that this can help me grow, then it won't necessarily cause them to feel miserable. So the challenge is just a neutral challenge. How people relate to it and how people experience it is up to the free will of the physical person who buys into either positive or negative beliefs and has a positive or negative relationship to the challenge that is in their lives that they planned to have for their own soul's growth. So it's about overcoming those negative definitions and assigning more positive definitions to things, knowing that we did choose to experience the challenge for a purpose that can serve us, instead of just assuming that there is something going wrong in our lives because this challenge came up. So again, it's all about how you define the experience. As Bashar often says, it's not so much what happens that matters. It's what you do with what happens that makes the difference in your life. So you have to exercise your free will about how you approach the challenge, and that determines exactly how you're going to experience the challenge. So that's up to you, and that's totally in your control.
So basically, it's how we react to the situation. It's not the situation itself, it's our reaction to the situation.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds really odd for me to say this, and I know that it doesn't translate well into our language at first, but the truth is that life is meaningless, and I don't mean that in a negative sense. I just mean it doesn't have built-in meaning. It's kind of like a set of neutral props, and you are designed to give it meaning. That's what we're
Yeah,
doing.
yeah.
We're the co-creators. We infuse a situation with, oh, this means something good or this means something bad. Those are assumptions that we're making because of the way we've been taught and all this kind of stuff. And we have to overcome the idea of having a knee-jerk reaction and automatically defining something so quickly that it feels like there's no other way to look at it. People say, well, that if that's bad and everyone would think that's bad and everyone knows that's bad. No, they don't. And you really have to stop and pause and go, how would I prefer to define this? Now, it doesn't mean that you start calling negative things positive things. What I'm saying is, if you stay in a positive state, even if something was generated negatively, you can still get a positive benefit out of it by learning the lesson of why it's there, what it was created for, how it was created, and transforming that experience into something positive. So I'm not saying that you start looking at negative things and saying, oh, yeah, that's positive. No, you can still recognize the energy that created it, but you can also transform it in your experience of why it's in your life. It doesn't have to lead to a negative experience just because it may have been created in a negative way. So negative things can be used in a positive way. Positive things can be used in a negative way. Again, our free will and our definitions of what meaning we assign to things determines exactly how we experience these things.
Yes, I heard that definition before that life doesn't have a meaning, which is painful for us to accept. We have a meaning, we have a goal, we have a mission.
Mm.
But here it makes a lot of sense what you said, that we give it a meaning.
Mhm.
We create our own mission. We create every second of our lives all the time.
Yes, I mean, our purpose is to be ourselves as fully as possible, what we truly, truly are, and to discover new things about ourselves through this process we call physical reality. Because in space and time, when you create the illusion of space and time, then you create the ability to experience the process of change, to discover something new, a new perspective, a new understanding about yourself and your relationship to existence. Whereas in a timeless state, there's nothing new. You know everything, there's no change. So we create this experience within our soul called physical reality as a projection, as an illusion, as a simulation, in order to forget who we are so we can remember who we are from a new point of view. And that's how creation expands and grows. The structure of existence never changes. It's our relationship to it, our perspective of it, and our experience of it. That's what changes, and that's how creation expands and grows.
But how do people find out who they are? Because most people that I know, not most, but a lot of people that I know have no idea who they are. They are searching all the time and they don't know.
The idea is, as Bashar explains it, to understand what it is that you are passionate about, what it is that excites you in life, what it is that attracts you in life, and why that attracts you, why you're curious about that, why you're excited, why you're passionate about it. What he's explained is the soul communicates to the physical mind with energy messages. The physical mind translates those energy messages from the soul, saying, this is who you are, as the sensation we call passion, excitement, love, curiosity, creativity. That's our translation of a message from the soul saying, this is who you are, this is your path. If you are willing to act on what it is you're passionate about, then you are listening to the guidance of your soul. And if you don't, then the soul is not going to send you more messages and more opportunities to act on your passion until you act on what it's already sent you, because it would be pointless. So you have to actually respond, and you actually have to take the action, because action, as I said, is the language of physical reality, physical action. Once you do that and you're willing to act on that passion, that excitement to the best you can, you are responding to your soul's message saying, yeah, I heard you. You're guiding me. This is the next step I need to take. And once you do that, then the soul can go, okay, the physical mind heard me. It is willing to respond to me. Now we have a dialogue. Now I can send you more opportunities through synchronicity to exercise your passion, your excitement, your truth. And that can keep going, and it can roll and keep rolling and keep expanding. But if you don't believe it, if you refuse to do it, if you are not willing to move forward because you're afraid that something might go wrong, then you're stopping the whole dialogue between you and your soul, and you're not going to necessarily be the person that is in alignment with the path that you have chosen. You can't really be off your path. So even when you refuse to listen, there's still a lesson possibility there. You are still accepting that your soul is going to learn something from that. Whether it learns it in this life or after this life is not important. You will learn the lesson whether you have a positive or a negative response. Somewhere you'll learn the lesson. But by having chosen to experience physical reality, it is, let's say, more efficient while you're physical to accept what your soul is saying to you and experience the joy and love and creativity of being in alignment with those messages, instead of waiting till you die and going, oh yeah, I guess I could have paid attention to that, but I didn't. You still learn a lesson, but now it's like, well, now maybe I want to create another incarnation because maybe this time I'll pay more attention to the soul. And now you're kind of doing it all over again. But that's up to you. You know, you have free will on every level, and you can decide to do it now or do it later. It doesn't really matter in the ultimate sense. But if you're here, you chose to be here, you might as well have a good time while you're here. You might as well express your self-empowerment and your creativity in service to humanity while you're here, because being yourself lets you act like a living example to others of what they could also choose for themselves. So why not follow your path? Why not follow your passion in this life to the best you can? at the very least, you're going to have a much better time.
Yeah, I agree, sir, completely with you. Same page here. But you see, a lot of people have excuses.
Yeah.
I had a child to raise. I had to take care of my old parents. I had to had a job. I had to had 4 jobs. I didn't have time for creativity. I didn't have time for music. I didn't have time to do that. I
Yeah.
had obligations.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying you avoid your obligations if they're really important in your life, but the thing of it is sometimes what people are defining as obligations could actually be part of their excitement if they would go about it in a different way. And when you are in alignment with your passion, one of the things that starts amplifying in your life is synchronicity. And synchronicity is the organizing principle. It's the thing that tells you everything is connected and everything happens in perfect timing. There
Yeah.
are no accidents. So when you start aligning with synchronicity, the things sometimes you thought you needed to do in a certain way, you might realize can either be done in a different way that takes less time or don't need to be done at all. Or you can hire someone else to do them, which can be part of your excitement as well if it's not part of yours to do it yourself. But you have to be honest with yourself about whether you're the one coloring and dampening the excitement that could be there, or whether something is truly not vibrationally compatible with who you are. So it takes a lot of honest self-investigation and a lot of willingness to not be afraid to move forward, because when you do, your life does organize itself. And synchronicity will bring you what you need to do in the course of any particular day. And at the end of the day, when you are excited about resting, going to sleep, whatever didn't get done that day didn't need to be done that day. You have to really trust the organizing principle of the way synchronicity works, that your day is filled exactly with what you needed to do, and other things will be done tomorrow or the day after. Not meaning that you're putting them off or procrastinating. It's just that it truly does organize your day so that what needs to be done in any given day gets done. But again, you have to really be willing to open up, move forward, not be afraid, not think something bad's going to happen, not use the excuses of I don't have time. Of course you do. It's just what your priorities are all about. And if your priorities are to be yourself, things start organizing themselves in a way that allows you to experience being yourself. And that includes raising a child or having certain obligations that are part of your life, part of why you're here, but can be done in a more exciting way. There's always a way that you can do things in a way that works better for you. You don't have to do them the way other people do them. Everyone is unique. Everyone has their own way of doing things. All you have to do is be imaginative and creative enough to find them.
So basically, if you follow your passion, the doors open. Just
Yes,
keep going. Yeah.
yes, just keep going. Don't be afraid that something bad's going to happen, because passion can never make something bad happen. It's when you step out of your passion that things kind of go sideways. So you can't associate the idea of, oh, I'm following my passion and all these horrible things happen. No, you may have started acting on your passion, but then for some reason you jumped out of it and went into a negative vibration. And that's why all these things are starting to feel more like blockages. You have to look at your definitions of what you're calling a blockage and understand that it might just be your fear of moving forward that is creating your blockage. So you have to examine, why am I afraid? What do I think is going to happen? And realize that that's not necessarily a fact. It's just a story that you're telling yourself, or a story that's coming from the negative belief that's saying, oh yeah, if you move forward, then this horrible stuff is going to happen and you're going to be destitute. You're not going to have friends. You won't be able to do this. You won't be able to do that. These are stories that we've been trained to tell ourselves, to buy into the negative stories coming from the negative belief system, which is trying to perpetuate itself and make sure you don't let it go. This is how belief systems work. Remember, you don't have a belief, then you don't have a physical experience. You have to believe something to be true to have this physical experience. So positive beliefs will perpetuate themselves and negative beliefs will perpetuate themselves. We don't care when the positive beliefs perpetuate themselves because that feels good. But the negative beliefs can only use the tools that go along with negative beliefs. So negative beliefs will amp up the fear that something bad will happen to make sure you never let it go. If you can see through that as not a fact, but just a story the negative belief is telling you in order to perpetuate itself and make sure you don't let it go, then you can say, this is just a story. I don't have to buy into it. I can let that go. And I can understand that if I now choose a positive belief, the universe will reinforce that unconditionally in the same way that it reinforces anything I decide is true, because it is unconditional. So if you say, I'm going to buy into this negative belief, creation says, okay, I will support you in buying into that negative belief. Totally, unconditionally. If you say, I'm going to buy into this positive idea, the universe also says, I'm going to support you unconditionally in that. You're the one that has the power to choose. That's our greatest gift. So whatever you choose, the universe is going to reinforce it because the universe is unconditional.
Beautiful, beautiful. I completely agree with that.
It's like, what you buy into is what you experience. It's what you feed. So if you're constantly looking at how things can go wrong, then, things
Yeah.
will feel like you're walking uphill or you're trying to swim upstream all the time. If you simply trust that things can work out to your benefit, even if it's not what you expect, it's a lot smoother ride. It's just a lot more effortless. And things can magically happen when you're open to it happening in any way, shape, or form, because you don't always know what the ideal outcome actually needs to look like.
Yeah.
We have to let go of our ego's thought that we always know what the best outcome should look like. We honestly don't have a clue sometimes what the best outcome really needs to look like. But if we're willing to trust our higher mind to bring it to us and learn our lessons, then we get these amazing outcomes in the most unexpected ways through synchronicity. So, yeah, it depends on how you approach life as to what you experience.
Yeah. So there is no right outcome. We create the outcome ourselves.
Yes, we create the way that we experience the outcome, but the outcome that will come to us is what we need. We have to look at the idea that what we need will fulfill us more than the idea of often what we want, because what we want sometimes comes from the ego.
Yeah.
What we need is what reality is showing us we need to grow based on our life path.
Okay. So what we need, you mean that's what we planned before we incarnated here? What we need is what is needed for our evolution.
It's what was needed for our evolution, what is needed for our soul's growth, what is needed for us to experience our path. Bashar has defined 7 basic needs that we need in life that will actually fulfill us. And these are based on the idea of what it takes to thrive in physical reality. In other words, without these, you would actually die either quickly or slowly, or you would feel depressed and start to go downhill. So, number one, of course, is air. You need to breathe. You'll be dead within minutes without it. Now, I understand there are exceptions to this throughout the legends of humanity where people don't eat for a long time or don't drink water for a long time and they're doing fine. But these are the exceptions. What I'm talking about is the average for everyone. So you need air, you need water, you need to sleep, you need to reconnect to spirit, you need to dream more specifically. They've done studies that show that if you sleep but are deprived of dreaming, you actually can go psychotic in about 11 to 12 days. And therefore, you can go spiraling downward from that. Of course, then physically, you need food to thrive because you'll die without food in a matter of weeks. And then it shifts into a little bit more broad idea of what you need in terms of shelter. Shelter doesn't necessarily mean you need a house. It means you need an environment that is conducive to physically thriving. So sometimes there are areas on the planet, like certain tropical environments, where people can live outside very comfortably without necessarily needing a physical shelter or a physical house. So the idea is the environment needs to be conducive to thriving physically as well. The next thing, the 6th thing, is you need connection or relationship to something. Again, doesn't have to be a human being, can be with an animal, can be with a tree, can be with the cosmos. As long as you feel a sense of connection, belonging, relationship, then you will thrive in physical reality. The final thing is what we might call self-expression or acting on your passion. And this is what dovetails into the formula that Bashar talks about all the time, is you have to be yourself and express yourself and not be suppressed in doing so. You have to really be you and not be something that you're not. The most difficult thing in the reality is to try and be someone you're not. So being yourself, expressing yourself creatively, lovingly, artistically, whatever that means to you, is something that's vital for us to thrive in physical reality. And therefore, these 7 things will be the things that will fulfill your life. Sometimes your wants may coincide with your needs, but very often the ego gets lost and confused in about what it is that it wants, and what you want may not actually be what you need at that moment. There are a lot of people that have certain things they've said they wanted, but they're still not happy in their life. So what you need will fulfill you. What you want may sometimes, but not always. So if you're going to want, I would suggest you want what you need, because that will fulfill you.
Number 6, you said that connection. So it doesn't have to be a physical connection with another person necessarily, because
No.
most people think that, yeah, you got to have a couple. You have to be married. You have to have a couple to be happy. So that's
No.
not true. You can be happy just meditating or praying or doing what you love.
Yes, as long as you have a connection or feel the connection to the cosmos, to all that is, to one, you can have a relationship with a rock, but you have to feel the connection. You have to feel a relationship that reflects something to you that allows you to discover more of who you are, and to be of service in a way that allows you to give to the other in the relationship, whatever that may be, in a way that also serves them. So, I mean, you can have a relationship with humanity in general by being of service to humanity. It doesn't have to necessarily be with one person. Now, very often it might be, because different people will come into your life and you have relationships with people, but it doesn't have to follow what society thinks has to be the structure. It can be friends, it can be acquaintances, it can be an animal, it can be anything. As long as you're willing to be of service and receive what you are being served by in that relationship, or again, exploring the cosmos and having a relationship with all that is, and giving back by being of service in some way, shape, or form, as long as you feel connected, you're fulfilling that need.
Yeah, you can be nature. You can just walk barefoot on the beach or in the trees somewhere, and that's a big connection too.
But again, being of service is also important.
Yeah.
So it might be the idea of making sure that the trees are healthy, making sure they survive, planting new trees. So your connection is with nature and being a part of nature in that sense. That's an example of how you can do that.
Also about dreams, because we believed that when you sleep and you don't have any dreams, that's a great sleep. And when you have a lot of dreams, it's a bad sleeping.
Yeah,
I
no,
mean, yeah, but it's
it depends on the dream. It depends on the dreams, and whether you're at peace with yourself. But the thing of it is when we're asleep, a lot of times we're having adventures out of our body, astral form, and all that. The spirit doesn't sleep, only the physical body sleeps. So the spirit is very busy while you're asleep very often. What you remember as a dream can be a variety of different things. And sometimes it can be literally memories of having had an adventure in another reality, in another dimension. But we have to have that spiritual connection, because remember, physical reality isn't real, and we have to maintain it. That's one of the ways you know that physical reality isn't real, is because it falls apart, it decays, it dissolves over time, and you have to maintain it. So, in order to maintain the idea of our simulation, we have to reconnect to spirit, and we have to recharge our battery, so to speak,
yeah,
so that we can come back again and go, okay, here's another day. I have enough battery energy to maintain this physical simulation for another day, but
yeah.
then I'm going to go to sleep. I'm going to reconnect. I'm going to recharge, reorient what's going on, check in with myself, check in with my spirit guides, my soul family, whatever. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to wake up again in physical reality, which is actually, in a sense, ironically, going to sleep. Then you are having this physical dream. Because remember, you never leave spirit. That's your natural state. You're there right now. You're just pretending that you're not, or a part of you is pretending that it's not. And that's what we call physical reality. So you have to maintain that illusion. You have to maintain that projection, and reconnecting to your soul and reconnecting to your non-physical self is what gives you the energy to charge your battery, to maintain this illusion again for another day or two or three or whatever your normal sleep cycle is. So it's very important to do that. Otherwise, again, we break down, we go psychotic, we can't maintain continuity in this physical reality,
Yeah.
we lose it, and we might take ourselves out, you know?
Yeah, that's what Paramahansa Yogananda was saying all the time about sleep. He said, we connect into the cosmos, we charge in our battery. This is when we're alive.
Yeah, when we sleep, we're actually more awake. And when we wake up, actually more asleep.
Yeah, that's interesting about dreams because I remember one dream. I don't remember. I was a kid, I believe, or a youngster. I had a dream of flying over this big yellow, like a meadow, but it was a huge one. It was like a city.
Mhm.
And I was flying. I see that dream in a row for, I don't know, a week or two, the same dream. And I was flying beautiful. The feeling was so amazing. And I saw in the distance, very, very far away, some kind of forest in the distance, blue sky, and I was just flying peacefully. I remember that dream until now.
Well, when we have astral projection, in a sense, we are flying, and that can translate into that kind of a dream where
Well,
we're seeing another reality, we're on another plane in another parallel world or the spirit realm, because whatever it is in physical reality exists in non-physical, as above, so below. It's not as below, so above. It's as above, so below. Things start in non-physical reality first. That's where the template is. That's where those realities are. And then it manifests into
yeah.
physical reality. So we can have adventures and experience worlds, realities, all sorts of things in the astral form. And then we go back to sleep and just focus it in this particular physical dream so that we can accomplish certain things that we wanted to accomplish here.
What is your definition of freedom?
Being your true self. You are free to choose. That's our greatest power. Use the freedom to choose what really works for you, what you really prefer. A lot of times we can discover that by being of service to others and realize who we are, what our path really is in this life. But freedom is being yourself, your true self, not trying to be something you're not.